ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः We pranam to all of you. Today is the final day of our IKS-TKDL workshop, Traditional Knowledge, Intellectual Property and People's Rights. Today we have Madam Dr. Vishwajanani Satyagiri, the head of TKDL unit, and Madam has extensive experience on TKDL and IKS also. Today, Madam will show us the road ahead, what is the potential, how we can take it forward. That's the short, concise lecture. Then it will be followed with the final assessment. There would be 40 MCQs. You will be given 45 minutes. Will be there. Please listen, madam, carefully. Then we will go to the assessment part. Pranam, madam. Please, over to you.
Thank you. I can see Piyush very happy. It's the last day, right? Thank you so much, Piyush, for coordinating this. We are truly grateful for this opportunity and collaboration as well. And coming over to the last day of the presentation. So today what we're going to talk about is the TK inspired innovations, because when we talk of traditional knowledge, I keep repeating the same thing. It is not a matter of archival alone. It is important to recognize that it has high potential for addressing today's needs as well as the future. So I guess all the participants have enjoyed the workshop until now. So we talked about the expanse and significance of the Indian knowledge systems. Am I audible? Can somebody confirm? Okay, I see the responses. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, so we talked about the expanse and the significance of the Indian knowledge systems, and we also got to understand from Professor Murthy what the IKS division of the Ministry of Education does, and we also got to understand what are intellectual property rights, the general cases of intellectual property rights, what you need to do in order to apply for either patents or copyrights or any other designs or similar such IPR framework. Then we also talked about protection of traditional knowledge in the context of both defensive and as well as positive protection. So we talked about how the TKDL helps in defending our ownership to our own traditional knowledge. We also talked about the ethics in handling traditional knowledge, especially the free and prior informed consent. We also talked about attributing the knowledge to the concerned custodians of the knowledge. That is when we talk about the oral traditional knowledge or anything that is yet to be codified. We also talked about the access and benefit sharing, because when we talk about oral traditional knowledge, it is important to share the benefits of whatever we achieve through that knowledge with the concerned custodians. So today will be the last day, as Piyush just mentioned. I will be talking for about 30 minutes, then we will have a brief question answer session, and then we will take you to the final assessment. So there will be 40 MCQs and you have to complete it within 50 minutes. And most importantly, what PhD forgot to mention, I think, is unless you achieve 75%, you will not be given a merit certificate. So in this context, my best wishes to every participant who's been with us over these last 5 days in learning about traditional knowledge, the intellectual property rights and the people's rights. So again, I keep repeating, why are we talking about traditional knowledge? Because generally when we talk about traditional knowledge, we think that it is just of the past, right? But in today's context, when we are progressing towards achieving our sustainable development goals, would traditions and culture have any impact on achieving the sustainable development goals? And the answer is a resounding yes, because culture and traditions will fall across all the 17 sustainable development goals. And you will get to see from a few examples that I will be providing you today. So when we talk about traditions and culture, when we talk about the Sustainable Development Goal 1, which is to end poverty in all its form, I'd like to give an example. And in today's lecture, I'll be talking about not only Indian traditional knowledge, but some of the important aspects of traditional knowledge from across the world. So here about the goal 1 and what has Indonesia done. I'm sure all of you heard about the batik textiles, right? So there is a city called the Pekalongan city in Indonesia. It's called the city of batik. So what the government had done is that they developed strategies giving priority to this traditional textile sector. And this traditional textile sector also happens to contribute to women employment. So here by giving this particular focus to the batik textiles, they have been able to generate employment, and of which 60% are women employees. So thereby they are providing means of livelihood to all the concerned people of this sector. So this kind of helps in achieving goal 1. If you talk about goal 2, what is it all about? Ending hunger, achieving food security, and improved nutrition and promoting sustainable agriculture. It's all about agriculture and as well as food security and thereby ending hunger. So the example that I would like to draw to your attention is the Seed Swap Festival. So this is being done in the Seferihisar city of Turkey. And here what happens is that the local producers and the farmers, they all join together like a Kisan Mela that happens in India. And here what they do is not only do they share knowledge about the low-cost agricultural practices, but also they create an awareness of the need for preserving sustainable food production and consumption. And what is of very greater importance is that the farmers swap seeds. So when you have good variety seeds, when you share it with your neighbor farmers or your fellow farmers, you are able to help good agriculture, good productive agriculture, and thereby you will be able to achieve the goal 2. The third example that I would like to give you with regards to goal 3, which is on ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages, is the National Ayush Mission. And as all of you know, this is across all the states and the union territories of India. It provides a better access to Ayush services through the National Ayush Mission. Herein, there is also co-location of Ayush facilities at the primary health centers, the community health centers, as well as the district hospitals. The fourth example that I would like to give you is on goal 4, ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. So typically when we talk about education, we talk about the children, right? Because when you talk of education, the mindset is that only the children need to be educated. So example from the Jiangsu city of South Africa, somebody is saying that the voice is not clear. Am I not clear? Is there any noise?
The voice is very clear, madam.
All right. Okay. So I'd request for people who are not able to hear, just log off and log in again. Perhaps it would help. So yeah, so the example that I would like to talk about achieving the goal 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals is from South Korea. It's called the Traditional Culture City. So what they do is that they have a lot of important traditional heritage buildings. It's actually the intangible heritage and cultural assets of Korea. And what they do is that to kind of appreciate that and learn, about this particular heritage buildings, they have provided what is called the culture city, wherein education as well as awareness programs are imparted not only to the children but also to the adults. So this is to carry on the tradition, the knowledge, and the practices that that they have inherited from their ancestors. So this is a few examples. We'll move forward to understand a little more from India and as well as the best practices to say that how traditional knowledge and practices has inspired innovation event today. So I'm sure we are all reeling under Gukesh's international fame, right? The youngest to achieve the international championship, chess championship. So as all of you know, chess originated in India. There is absolutely no doubt about it, and there's no controversy associated with it. So, I know during the Rig Veda time, perhaps it was known as the Palaka. In Atharva Veda, it is mentioned as the Adi Devana. In Ramayana, it is called the Ashtapada. Then came Dasapada, which is a 10 by 10 instead of the 8 by 8. Then in later years, it was called the Chaturanga, then Shatranj. And of course, today chess is an international game. Okay, in fact, there is the International Chess Day being celebrated on 20th July every year, and this has been happening since the year 1966. So how is it important in the context of sustainable development goal? When you talk about chess, we generally believe it is all about entertainment, right? Of course, it's a brain game, but you don't relate it to developmental goals or anything. So here, the United Nations says that chess is a global game. It promotes fairness, inclusion, and mutual respect. And noting in this regard, it can contribute to an atmosphere of tolerance and understanding among peoples and nations. And how do they achieve the sustainable development goals? By strengthening education, realizing gender equality, and the empowerment of women and girls, and fostering inclusion, tolerance, mutual understanding, and respect. And why? Because every notation of the chess game adds to thinking deeply about what should be the next move and whether it is going to be a positive move or is it going to be a negative move. And it also fosters a companionship and as well as a mutual respect to the players of the game. So this is something that, the game that originated in India is standing to, for international fame even today. I will move on quickly to something related to the drugs and pharma. Traditional knowledge, as we have been talking about the National Ayush Mission. We talked about Ayurveda. Very recently, yesterday, the World Ayurveda Congress concluded. So here, does traditional knowledge have any role in, in treating the afflictions of today? The answer is again a resounding yes. I'll give you an example of quinine for malaria. As the traditional legends go, malaria was considered as malaria, that is bad air. And in the earlier years, ancient years, people would think that there is something wrong with the brain and they would do, bloodletting. So basically they would, create a hole in the brain so that the blood oozes out and they would think that all the bad blood has gone and so the patient can be treated. It was all kind of largely fatal because you can, secondary infections and so on and so forth. So how did treatment for malaria happen? So as the oral traditional knowledge goes, this happened from the Indian forest and here of Peru. And the story that is told is that an Indian who was having high fever walked through the forest of the Andean jungle. Today is the Manu National Park. And while he was going, because of his fever and walking long distance, he started feeling very thirsty. And he drank, from a pool that was, passing by through the jungle. He drank some water. As soon as he drank the water from that particular pool or lake or river, whatsoever it is, he started feeling a little uneasy. He thought that perhaps this is poisoned water and maybe he's going to die. So he could not do anything. Out of fear, he thought, okay, let me go and rest for a little while. But very strangely, after some time, he started feeling that his fever is receding. And he realized that there is something magical about the water that he drank, and that has helped him, overcome the fever. So what he did is that he shared this information with his fellow villagers, and thereafter, whoever had, this kind of fever would go to that particular river and drink the water from there. later on, they realized that the river bed or the pool, whatever it is, it had a lot of the cinchona trees nearby, and they realized that perhaps something from the tree had fallen into the water, and because of that, the water had medicinal properties, and that is how the quina bark was started being used to treat fevers in the land of Peru. But when you talk of more of what do you say, more developed way of using quinine for malaria, it happened in the year 1961. This happened when the Countess of Chincona, that is the wife of the Viceroy of Peru, developed malaria. So they went to the Jesuit priest, and the Jesuit priest then offered the Countess a concoction made of the bark of the Indian tree, that is the Chincona tree, and mixed it with clove and rose syrups and other dried plants with other herbs, and told her to have this particular concoction to help her overcome the fever. And strangely so, she got cured of malaria and she became all right. So it was not until 1820 that the scientists identified that chincona was being used in Peru for treating malaria. So the scientists, Perry Joseph Pelletier and Joseph Kakadu, they extracted quinine from the bark of the cinchona tree, isolated the extract, and then purified the quinine, and then this became the standard treatment care for malaria over the extract. After 1820, only until 1944, the synthetic quinine was synthesized, and this synthetic quinine had fewer side effects than the natural variety. So this is how oral traditional knowledge translated into something meaningful to treat a very, very important disease such as malaria. Even today, there are lots of people who are affected by malaria. The second story, again related to malaria, draws from an inspiration from China. I'm sure all of you would have heard about the story of Tu Youyou, who won the Nobel Prize for artemisinin. And while accepting the Nobel Prize, she said that this discovery of artemisinin is a gift from the traditional Chinese medicine to the world. So the story as it goes is that during the Vietnam War, there were a lot of soldiers who were succumbing to the malaria, which was resistant to quinine. So Vietnam sought the help of China to overcome or to come up with a cure for treating this resistant malaria, chloroquine-resistant malaria. So the premier himself launched the Project 523. It started on 23rd of March 1967. And the aim of this particular Project 523 was to find a cure for chloroquine-resistant malaria so that they could help the soldiers at the war. So the project began, and Tu Youyou was made the head of the project. She went to the Hainan island to understand what exactly was the problem there. So after understanding the issues related to the chloroquine-resistant malaria, she returned to Beijing. By then, the scientists had tested almost about 2.5 lakhs of compounds for its anti-malarial activity, and unfortunately, nothing worked. So Tu Youyou went back to look at the ancient medical text. So in one particular case, she saw that a plant called sweet wormwood, that is Artemisia annua, was used in China way back in 480, and this was used to treat intermittent fevers. Okay, and when you talk of malaria, intermittent fevers is a symptom. So in the year 1971, she isolated one compound, and although in vitro it was found active, when she tested it, it was found to be ineffective. So she realized that there is something wrong. While the traditional texts do say that this can be used for intermittent fever, somehow when she tried the modern science and technological method and extracted the particular compound, that was ineffective. So what she went back to the text, and this time she used a different solvent, And when she tried this particular extract on mice and monkeys, it was found to be very effective. So those days you did not have the protocols of clinical trials that you have today. So you herself and two other colleagues tested the substance on themselves and then took it on 21 patients in the Hainan province. All of them recovered from the chloroquine-resistant malaria. This is how the Artemisia annua was identified, was invented and discovered, I would say, and the findings were shared with everybody. The work was published only in the year 1979. In 81, WHO invited Tu and she was asked to present the findings to the United Nations. In 2006, almost after like close to 15 years, the WHO recommended this treatment, that is Artemisia annua, for uncomplicated malarial disease. And in 2015, she won the Nobel Prize. So this particular story indicates that you need to have focused, continued efforts when you are talking about traditional knowledge. It's not that you pick a story and then you do some experiments and say, oh, either it worked or it didn't work. Sometimes sustaining that particular interest and activity is important. And in this case, Tu Yu was lucky that she even won the Nobel Prize for such activity. So the third example that I would like to give you is about the Kakadu plum or Gubinji and the indigenous people of Australia. Over the last 2 years, my colleague Dr. Vijay Lakshmi talked about intellectual property rights and how the TKDA helps in preventing misappropriation of traditional knowledge, right? And she also in the presentation related to the ethical principles talked about the access and benefit sharing. So here, this particular story of the Kakadu plum draws on all of this. So this Kakadu plum is native to northern Australia, and largely the indigenous people, that is the Mirarr people, use it, know it as bush tucker, and it is used as a medicine. And while this has all been happening, an Australian patent was filed by one American company called Mary Kay. It is a cosmetic company. They use the extract for skincare products because the Kakadu plum happens to have the highest vitamin C content among many fruits. It has higher vitamin C content even compared to the lemon or lime or orange. So this company had used Kakadu plum extract and they went about using Kakadu plum from Australia and also commercializing the product. It was a researcher, who found that a patent has been filed. So he writes to the Intellectual Property Office of Australia saying that, the local indigenous community have not been consulted, nor has there any mention of, that this knowledge, that is disclosure of that particular source of information of that knowledge, So the Mirarr people were never mentioned in that application. So the Intellectual Property Office of Australia takes cognizance of it and rejects the patent application for lack of novelty and obviousness. But the story doesn't stop there. The application is withdrawn by Mary Kay, but her product continues to be sold. Okay. Unfortunately, in this case, even the access benefit sharing would not be, made compulsory, would not be mandated because what the Mary Kay said is that they had procured the Kakadu plum from commercial authorities and not from the indigenous people. So hereby, if the indigenous people lost rights to the benefits that the Mary Kay had been getting from this particular skincare product. So one needs to be very careful. That's the reason we keep emphasizing, be it the genetic resources or the traditional knowledge associated with the genetic resources, one needs to ensure that the concerned custodians of the knowledge are acknowledged and benefits are shared with that particular community. So in view of all of this, what the government of Australia had done is that they constituted what is called the alliance, that is NACPA, that is Northern Australian Aboriginal Kakadu Plum Alliance. So now this particular consortium harvests and processes all of the Kakadu plum and provides it to all the concerned innovators. So there is a variety of products that are developed based on the Kakadu plum, be it the powder or the plum oil or the skin creams or even the vitamin C salts. We have a variety of products that have been developed and including foods, of course. Okay, and they have to source the Kakadu plum only through this particular consortium, thereby ensuring that access and benefit sharing mechanism is valid and is also implemented. Coming back to India, we all know we started with the story of turmeric, right? When we talked about the TKDL, saying that the turmeric for its wound healing properties was patented, and we had to fight the US Patent Office so as to revoke the patent. In today's context, you look at the turmeric market, it is billions of dollars, and it is growing every year. In 2020, it was estimated to be about $5 billion. That was the turmeric market. And in today's world, you have a variety of products. The diversification of products is what is most important. This actually talks about having a creative mind, innovating over what is already available in our traditional knowledge, right from the oleoresins to the healthy drops to all the cream products and the cosmetics products, the FMCG products, to haldi doodh, and of course even pickles are being made out of turmeric, halwa, laddus, everything has turmeric today. So it talks about diversification of product portfolio. One another very different story that I would like to tell you is about the man-made glaciers or the ice stupas. So again, to me, myself, when we talk of glaciers, we believe that it is a natural phenomenon. It happens in the higher altitudes and all that. And to me personally, until I started reading about this story, I didn't realize that, glaciers can be man-made as well. So again, the story goes back to our oral traditional knowledge. So the communities in the Hindu Kush region and in some places of the Ladakh and the people of the Baltistan and Gilgit region, they have an oral tradition that they create artificial glaciers. This is because when it happens in the higher altitude regions, over the summer months they do not have enough water for agricultural purposes. To ensure that they have water even during the summer months, they create what is called these artificial glaciers. So it goes through a very rigorous way of strategy of preparing these artificial glaciers. They identify the site which should not be, sun facing. They collect the necessary material. It has a rock cover so that the the artificial glacier doesn't melt immediately. There's a lot of considerations that are provided. So in fact, the people there in the region of either the Baltistan or Gilgit or even the Ladakh regions, in today's context, they say, we have seen our elders perform it, but we have not seen it happening these days. But if you go back to the certain very high areas of the Ladakh or even the Gilgit regions, some people still practice that. So here what they do is that they identify, the female glacier snow and the male glacier snow, and then, only men go and collect both pieces. They come along with other straw and many other items. They put everything together, and then they kind of brew what is called the artificial glacier. And taking inspiration from such stories, Chirag Norwal, who was a civil engineer by profession, thought about creating artificial glaciers in the Ladakh region, again for the purpose of providing water during the summer months, especially for agricultural purposes. So he saw that melting water from the glaciers in summer and autumn by freezing it into artificial glacier can provide a solution to it. And what he did is that he created what is called the horizontal glaciers. That's a picture that I have put here. So he creates, what do you say, a kind of a wall so as to protect the water from flowing directly. So once it is kind of stopped, it would still kind of, freeze and then the glaciers are still maintained in a frozen state. So in summer months, this water would then melt and then it would provide water for the agricultural purposes. So he had built about 15 glaciers, okay, and the smallest was about 500 feet long and the largest was 2 kilometers long. So Chuang Noffer is also called the Iceman of India for this particular creation of his. But the problem with these, horizontal glaciers was that when the sun comes up, especially in the high altitudes, you would see, when the sun shines, it is very sharp and the heat is very, what do you say, unbearable. So even the ice would melt quickly and then it would flow out. So one would not be able to sustain or conserve water for agricultural purposes for very long. So then comes the story of Sonam Wangchuk. I think nobody would need an introduction to Sonam Wangchuk. What he did is that, inspired by the traditional practices on the artificial glacier and the Buddhist stupas in those regions, he created what is called the ice stupas. So the ice stupa is by first you create, the tower kind of a structure, and this can be made out of straw or metal wires or whatsoever. So you have a tubing that comes from the higher altitude and that goes into the stupa and it comes up. So the water then flows up, okay, and it falls across the iron structure or the straw structure, and it creates a structure which is similar to the stupa that you see in the second picture that I had put here. So what happens is, because of this, it is not facing the sun's side, and because of that, the melting of the snow takes a longer time. So when it comes to the summer months, the stupas, the ice of the stupas melt very slowly, and it provides a sustainable or sustained amount of water for agriculture. So in picture 5, you see that Sonam Wangchuk has also added this one, what is that, device for storing water, okay, reservoir or tanks, okay. So if you can collect the melting water into these reservoirs, you will be able to conserve water and also make it available for sustainable use across different agricultural crops. And this particular model of the ice stupa was being replicated by Switzerland, Chile, and other countries as well. So with this, he could see that this artificial glacier could provide water at higher elevations of about 15,000 feet above the sea level, and this water can last through July. So that is the important agricultural months. So this is again inspired based on our traditional knowledge and including our oral traditional knowledge. The last example that I would like to give you is about the ancient carpet weaving from the Jammu Kashmir region. In this, there is a particular weaving called the Thalim. So in the Thalim, they use symbolic codes to create those intricate patterns, okay, and this is all codified. So by the traditional method, if you look at the codes and all that, different artisans take up different pieces of that particular carpet, and then they weave the particular sections, and then everything is brought together. The process, the difficulty or the challenges with this process is that it is time consuming, one, and the second one is that, because different artisans use it, there could be mistakes. So this would come to light only when the entire piece is put together by bringing in the smaller pieces. So, because of these errors, although the artisans take a very long time, the cost price of the product, the selling price of the product comes down because of the errors in that particular weaving. So what had happened is that technological intervention was brought in. A computer software was created to handle the design and creation of the Thalim codes. Okay, and based on that, the weaving and knotting could still be done by hand. So here, what would happen is that, because it's all a software and programmeware, you could first see the different, smaller pieces and the whole design at once instead of the small sections. and the problems can be spotted in advance so that it would avoid creation of errors, or it could be correction of errors timely. So with this particular thing, the technology from 6 months, the time was brought down to 6 weeks, so that there is improvement or enhancement of the productivity in the carpet weaving. In today's context, they are also looking at artificial intelligence to help creation of the carding codes and also the diversity of the carpets being woven. So all of this is to tell you, and once again, that we started on day one to say that the national education policy, the national IPR policy, they all talk about inclusion of traditional knowledge to meet the requirements of today and as well as tomorrow. So here we are talking about a knowledge wound is transformed into knowledge shade, and where India can be a leader with regards to driving traditional knowledge inspired innovations to meet our current demands as well as futuristic demands. And we also talked about the TKDL and how we are expanding in scope and as well as the user base. In today's context, as I mentioned, UGC has fixed guidelines on the IKS. Similarly, ACTI also has a minor degree in the Universal Human Values that talks about the IKS courses. And IKS division of our country from the Ministry of Education, my collaborator, is also providing funding opportunities. So all that we require from you is to help us protect, preserve, and promote the traditional knowledge of India, going by this particular proverb, Nachora Haryam, Nacha Raja Haryam, Na Pratibhaja, Nacha Varakari, Vye Krite Vartate Evam Nityam Vidyadanam Sarvadhana Pradhanam. So unless every one of us use it, we will not be able to multiply the wealth of India. I look forward to your support in achieving the dream of us, towards promoting our traditional knowledge systems.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So giving us the roadmap how we can go through ethically, we can work and we can deal TKDL ethically. That is very, very important. Yeah. So ma'am, we can take few questions from then we can go to the
Yeah.
assessment. We request all of you, please raise your digital hand and ask your question. I will unmute you.
So after this brief question answer session, we'll roll out the assessment.
Assessment, yes.
There is one question, ma'am.
Yes.
Pompi Devi, she's asking that, is there any opportunity of internship for students to participate in IKS?
They
Yes.
have internship programs, yes.
Mm.
I request you to look at the IKS website. Details of the internship is posted there.
Yes. I hope in the next in January or in February it will come again. The next
Okay.
round of internship. Dr. Indrani ji, are you there?
Broccoli to katito. Broccoli katito.
Hello.
Broccoli olop ami dino dekhalo.
I think there is a question. It says, is there any scope of specialization in any particular branch of IKS, or is it in general that we have to know about IKS? No, if you look up the IKS website, they have different domains. So if you would want to specialize in any particular area of IKS, you can either approach them for internship or for a research grant. There's also DST program tree, and there is one more which I forget which one is that, that talks about funding towards protecting our heritage and also validation.
Another question is there any research scope related to IKS? And is there any organization who can fund for that kind of projects?
Yes, both I would urge you to look up the IKS division website and as well as DST. If you wish to pursue any research and anything related to Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, Swarika or Yoga, I would urge you to please look up Ministry of Ayush website or the constituent councils. So you have 4 councils, the Central Council for Research in Ayurveda Sciences, then it is Unani Medicine, then you also have the Siddha and also the Yoga and Naturopathy.
So majority of the questions are regarding internship, getting funds for research, similar
Hello.
kind of questions.
Yes,
So
Viraj.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, like how like new technologies coming into this marketplace, how they are affecting IKS in well manner? Like,
See, when we talk about any knowledge, be it traditional knowledge or contemporary knowledge, it is all used for the welfare of people, right? So I think what Professor Murthy in his very first lecture, he mentioned this is not to differentiate or speak ill of any of the knowledge verticals. It is about the opportunities that are available to see how can we use our traditional practices, because when we talk of our traditional practices, we believe it is aligned to nature, the ecological and the environmental considerations as well. Okay. And when you talk of technology of today, it is to provide you that at a scale, because unless we are so high in population that we need any intervention that has been proven at scale. So that is where we need to see how can we co-opt or integrate our traditional practices with conventional practices. The reason why I gave you examples of quinine or even Artemis is to say that, these have all been derived from our traditional knowledge, okay? But we have improvised using technology. So there are ample opportunities for every one of us to look for those, opportunities and then see how can we bring together traditional knowledge with modern scientific knowledge. One another example today is the natural farming. By natural farming, you reduce the amount of chemical pesticides and fertilizers and use natural ones. So there are in every field, there are opportunities that we can co-opt and integrate traditional and modern scientific practices. Does that answer your question?
yes, ma'am. I'm satisfied.
Okay.
another question that we have is, what is the vision of knowledge system by 2030?
So the National Education Policy as well as the IPR policy has given you a clear roadmap on that. I urge you to look into that. And the reason such guidelines by the UGC or ACTI have been brought out is only to implement the policy into actionables. And as I mentioned, we need the support of all of you to kind of appreciate our own traditional knowledge systems and see how can we use that to address contemporary needs. So you will be part of the vision 2030.
So maybe this is the last question that we must
Yes.
take. This is like, what are some effective ways to incorporate indigenous knowledge into mainstream education curriculum, especially in schools?
So NCERT is revising the syllabuses of all classes in the school curriculum. I'm sure they will roll it out very soon. So IKS will be a part of our school curriculum as well. because neither the IKS division nor the CSIR would be able to say specifically on what changes are being brought out. I would only urge you to please wait until the NCRT brings out those changes, revisions. Pierce, there is a question perhaps that you can answer. Our department has planned to have international conference on IKS. Is there any possibilities for us to contact you personally? Yeah.
Yes. So you can make the proposal with concept note and the planned schedule and to send to our IKS division. So IKS division will review and give the permission to use logo and if any collaboration you need. So please send your proposal with concept note and schedule. Astu?
There's one more which has been sent privately. Can IKS be linked with skill education to promote livelihood in rural, remote, or tribal areas? Again, I've heard say perhaps our answer would be very bookish, but to say that the national education policy talks about skill education also. In fact, the national education policy also talks about having a person from the community to be part of the train. Okay, so they will teach the teachers of the schools, on certain skills and also the language and what needs to be imparted to the students. So that is how inclusive our national education policy is all. I think we'll stop here.
Yes. So we are sharing the assessment link. There are 40 questions, MCQ questions. Please complete within 50 minutes. It's 4:20, 5:15, ma'am. Is it so? And before we start, we can close the session with Shanti Mantra. Then I will be here first.
Yeah, all of you, please don't log out because the link will be shared here.
Yes. Oh. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः So we can stop live and recording, ma'am.